Leland's participation, and some of the other journalists who are here. I've got another question, and we'll allow time for questions from the audience. The black press reached the height of its power in World War II and has never regained that power, so says one critic. And he says this, that they were saying things at that time that blacks wanted to hear, championing democracy. Some of you may be familiar with the Double V campaign, which the black press waged. It had to do with victory not only overseas, with those blacks who were fighting on behalf of this country, but also victory here in the home front. You had black papers championing, for example, the integration of Major League Baseball, black newspapers championing many of the issues that were important during that time. Some of those issues are still important today. But Watford goes on to say this: white newspapers would only write about blacks when it related to crime, sports, or entertainment. That was, of the 40s. Some in the black community believe that this is still the case. What are your comments, panel, about that?
Well, I don't quite agree with that. I think that absolutely there's a need for alternative publications, including African-American publications, to record our history to a better degree than majority media might have pages or inches to do. And yes, we will champion those things in and of our community, we think, to a greater degree than majority media may do on a regular basis. And we take that as a calling. Sam Latham has been doing it for a good while here in Nashville. The Tennessee Tribune has been doing it since the early 90s. The Nashville Pride has been doing it. And yeah, absolutely, I agree with Dwight, we need to do a better job. And we will do a better job. And aside from family criticisms that should not break us apart by any means, we need to continue to record what's in and of our community and what our children need to read about and our children's children need to read about. So there has been, there is, and there will continue to be a need for the black press to do exactly what we're doing.
I agree that there is a need. And you mentioned some of the writers, Wendell Smith, for instance, with the Pittsburgh Courier, who helped get Jackie Robinson into Major League Baseball. We need to know those names. We need to know our history. We need to know how we got to where we are today. Those of us who still work for the black press and those of us in so-called mainstream media. When I came to Tennessee State in 1965, Tennessee State had an undefeated football team that year. People like Claude Humphrey, Elrich Dickey. Tutal wasn't here yet. But we had an undefeated football team. And when you picked up the Tennessean on Sunday morning, the Tennessean was, Tennessee State was on the back of the sports page. We had an undefeated regular season, played Ball State University out of Muncie, Indiana, in the Grantland Rice Bowl that year, up at MTSU. And the game we tied, the game ended in a tie. But when I would go to the library weeknights when I was at Tennessee State that year, and if you wanted to find out, read sports stories, you went and read the Pittsburgh Courier, or the Baltimore Afro-American, or the Atlanta Daily World. That's where we got our news. That's where we had people pushing for certain rights for us. Still today, and mainstream media could be doing a better job. The film show talked about the riots of '67. I have a book, and it's called, how many of you have heard of the Kerner Commission? How many students here have heard of the Kerner Commission report? You need to go to the library, go somewhere. So the official name is the Report of the National Advisory Commission on Civil Disorders. In 1967, there were riots all across the United States, even here in Nashville. Stokely Carmichael spoke at Impact on a Saturday afternoon here at Vanderbilt. Later that night, and I don't know that Stokely was the cause of the riot, some people want to put the blame on him, but over near Fisk University on Jefferson Street, there were riots. Riots broke out late that Saturday night. The next night, they came down toward Tennessee State University. But there are riots elsewhere, Watts elsewhere, Detroit, Chicago, Washington, D.C., and President Lyndon Johnson appointed a commission headed by then or former Illinois Governor Otto Kerner, K-E-R-N-E-R. And he asked them to find out what caused the riots. What role did the media, other groups, what role did they play in their lives? We wanted to know, what do we do to keep them from happening again? And that's where the current commission came out with a report. It'll be 40 years, March 1st, since the report came out. And it said that this nation was moving toward two societies, one black, one white. And they were unequal. But one of the things it said, when we got talked about the media, it said that most Negroes distrust what they refer to as the white press. And this report came out March 1st, 1968. As one interviewer reported, the average black person couldn't give less of a damn about what the media say. The intelligent black person is resentful at what he considers to be a totally false portrayal of what goes on in the ghetto. Most black people see the newspapers as mouthpieces of power structure. But overall, over in the report, it also says that it urges that news organizations must employ enough Negroes in positions of significant responsibility to establish an effective link to Negro actions and ideas and to meet legitimate employment expectations. Tokenism, the hiring of one Negro reporter, or even two or three, is no longer enough. Negro reporters are essential, but so are Negro editors, writers, and commentators. We've come a long way. Some of the papers, some of the TV stations have people of color, more people of color today than when this report came out in 1968. But go on the website and pull up the American Society of Newspaper Editors. Pull up their report on diversity and see where we are today. Look at different states. Look at different cities. Look at different newspapers. And still, here we are in 2008. And some newspapers, some television editors and broadcast managers will say, we still can't find enough. We can't find anybody worthwhile. And those too many excuses are still out there. And we, the people, need to speak up and urge for better coverage, urge that more people of color be hired in responsible positions. Who makes the decisions as to what goes on the front page, what pictures go on, what's shown on the 6 o'clock news? We're not where we need to be. We're not nowhere nearly where we need to be today.
Yeah, right. I want to piggyback and then we'll go there. I was reading on the NADJ website today, actually, and I'll just read from it. And this is a quote. We learned in early April 2001 that the American Society of Newspaper Editors would confirm in its annual diversity survey that more black journalists are leaving the industry than entering. Clearly more than the news release was needed. And so I don't know if that's still true, but if that is, that's a crying need because, again, notions of race and representation are very important. Sam, you were going to say?
Yeah, just quickly, I guess to probably a little bit of what Dwight was saying. First there's a will, then there's a second thing called capacity. I've been involved with having a newspaper since 1978. I quit my real job and decided to work for myself. But during the 90s, I guess was the height of our operations. We had a newspaper here and a newspaper in Memphis called the Memphis Times. At that time, our payroll was $48,000 a month. To cover a city the size of Nashville, with 120,000 African Americans inadequately covered, we had 5 reporters, full-time, part-time reporters, students, and I think we did an adequate job. But the reality is we needed more reporters than that. So there's economics. In 1997, we had our best year ever. We did $1.3 million in advertising revenue. Revenue started dwindling at that point. We lost over $400,000 a year in advertising by the year 2000. I took time to analyze and say, what were we doing wrong? It wasn't necessarily what we were doing wrong. But Access Med Plus went bankrupt. That was $96,000 a year. Sam Howard's company went bankrupt. That was another $40,000 a year. So when you look at the economics, the picture has changed since then. I don't think I could do $1.3 million in advertising anymore. The height of affirmative action, when companies were trying to demonstrate that they had a black conscience. So that went out the window. with the New Genders movement. So things have changed. Steve, I know, is operating with Black-owned newspaper. The economics just aren't there to adequately cover the community the way it needs to be covered. That's the bottom line. You would need a staff of 20 people to give the kind of service, be an advocate the way you should be, the way that you were talking about, the way that you would like to do it, Steve. The reality is we can't do it. The economics aren't there, so we'll do what we can, but we can't have coverage of everywhere, every place in the community.
And let me just say this. It's not only the black press.
No.
Papers like the Tennessean, you just saw where the editor of the Los Angeles Times was fired the other day. He was about the second or third one because his ownership, the company that owns the Times, wanted him to make some more cuts, and he said, "I cannot do it and do a good job of covering the city or this area," and so he lost. He was fired. But I am sorry if I offend anybody or hurt anybody's feelings, but I just want to, you asked me to be on this panel, and I have to be honest. Otherwise, I can't go home and look myself in the mirror. I think about it. Here's a fairly new book. It's a new book. Yours for Justice, Ida B. Wells. How many of you students heard about Ida B. Wells? Ida B. Wells was run out of Memphis because she spoke out against lynching. She was run out of town. And that's the type of job that we should be wanting to do. We want people to be pissed off at us. We just got to do our job. And if we can't do our job, we shouldn't be here. In the same way, newspapers and television stations. If you're not going to do your job, give it to somebody else to do.
There were a couple of hands, young lady over here and over here, and then over here.
Okay, my name is Shayla Berkeley, and I'm a freshman from Nashville. And I'm with the Jeremiah generation, and so it's like a on-campus organization. So we teach in high school once a month. And so this month was Black History, and that's the lesson that I was teaching. So I was like, okay, I don't want to teach about Martin Luther King and stuff like that. So I decided I wanted to kind of teach about inventors and then the future of Black history. So a lot of people that's doing different things, and I guess this is piggyback off of the question that he asked, and I guess got at the end and everybody else could comment on. I know it's a guy who's a black guy who's like a skater, and there's a lot of different things. Black people are crossing over into different avenues, and I do feel like on the internet, the only thing I could find was about all these entertainers or black, like when you type in the word black, they just say about all, so black people going to jail. So I do feel like that is something that is still a negative because I couldn't find all these positive images. I really had to go on Black history, Black love, stuff. It had to be really specific to only Black people instead of just a general consensus. And so, how would you say, okay, if you want to learn about this stuff, how would you go about finding it? Because it's not, I'm just going to tell you that it's not on the World Wide Web, easily accessible. And two, how do you think that can change in the near future to where it will be if you type in Black future, Black history, future, things that, people that are important and people that are doing different things other than making a new song will pop up,
I think something like that, it is where it has to come from within the Black community. Okay, there are several other websites that are out there, and I don't know how much Tom Joyner has on his site, but there's blackamericaweb.com and a host of other websites out there that try to go just beyond the normal people that you see about and hear about only in February or on MLK Day. But on something like that, it's going to take somebody from within the Black community just putting in the time, researching the time, and then putting that information out there and making sure that once it's there, they then gets to organizations like NABJ. It gets to places like the Black Cultural Center at Vandy or TSU, so then that information can be disseminated, because one of the ways that a lot of the other things start to spread on the internet is that once that seed has been planted, it's more or less other people finding out about it, and then just kind of like wildfire, it spreads to everybody else. So again, I think for it to start, that's something that's going to have to come from within the Black community, because I don't think somebody in the Hispanic community, I don't think somebody in the white community will look at it and say, okay, how can I make money off of it? Because in something like that, there may not be any money to begin with. It may have to be a passion of love to get you into researching it and then putting what you find out on the internet.
Okay. And then I want to take some more questions.
Okay. Just quickly, one of the things, we don't tell our stories our own stories enough. David Halberstam, several years ago, shortly after he wrote the book The Children, said at a regional NABJ conference that some black person probably should have written that book. You know, he was glad that he did, but we have to tell our own stories, and we wait for somebody else to tell our stories. Millions of stories in Atlanta. I got this picture here of a man named Robert Churchwell and W.A. Reed. Anybody ever heard of Robert Churchwell? He has 2 or 3 sons. 3 sons working as doctors here at the hospital medical center here.
4. Is it 4?
Well, no, he has one who's an educator.
One's an educator, yeah.
But he was the first black reporter to work for a mainstream newspaper in the South. He worked for the Banner, Nashville Banner, which used to be Nashville's afternoon paper. When Mr. Churchwell started working in 1953 for the Banner, he could not go to the office and take a seat in the newspaper. He had to write his stories, and he was covering. His job was to cover, and the Banner was a racist newspaper. His job was to cover Negro news. He had to write his stories at home and take them down to the paper and turn them in. And finally, when he got a job, could go to the paper and work, one day he was in his office typing a story, and another reporter hollowed out to the city editor, raised a question about a black man who had been appointed to a state position in Memphis. He lived in Memphis. And this white reporter hollowed up to the white city editor, "Hey, so-and-so, what's that nigger's name down in Memphis?" And Mr. Churchwell sat at his desk for a few minutes, and then he rolled over to the man and the reporter. He said, "So-and-so, I'm surprised at you." And the man said, "What are you talking about, Bob? What are you talking about?" And Mr. Churchwell said, "You know what I'm talking about." Bill Reed later in the 60s became the first black reporter for the Tennessean. And his job was, he was a religion writer. He went to a white church one Sunday, and he sat down on the front pew, and people got up and moved away. But then another white person came and sat beside him and said, "We're all not like this." These are things that these people had to go through. They paved the way for us. We need to tell their stories. Mr. Churchwell has been writing on the book, and Takuma Robeck tried to help him, but his story needs to get told. It's been told some, but we need to hear stories like that, and we can't wait for somebody else to tell those stories. And you should get busy. Just take a tape recorder, go interview some of your kin folks and other folks. You know, people are getting old and they're dying out, and if we don't tell their stories, who will?
We did invite Mr. Churchwell here, just FYI, but because I guess he's pushing 90 now, so just couldn't make it at this point. But we did invite him to be a part of the panel today.
Right. Steve, you were going to say something?
Just to address just a little background. I went to Western Kentucky University in Bowling Green, Kentucky, and was a photographer for the student newspaper there for a couple of years, and the yearbook. And this was in the late 70s. And as I finished my stint there at the student newspaper there at the university, and Western Kentucky is a smaller college and a smaller percentage of African American students at that time. And I was the only black guy running around with a camera, doing anything associated with a student newspaper. And as I lessened that involvement with the student newspaper and the yearbook, students would come to me, black students would come to me and say, not enough is going on in the student newspaper about black students. There's not enough coverage. They're not talking about what concerns the African American student body at Western Kentucky University. So I started my own newspaper in 1979, Sam, so I joined you as a publisher. My point is, there's an opportunity. Take advantage of that opportunity. If there's something that isn't being done, do it. I was a poor student, and I started my own newspaper. It doesn't exist now. I left. I had to come to Nashville to earn more money. But that's an opportunity. We're going to continue to do what we can do. The Tennessee Tribune, even majority media, are going to continue to do what they can do. But if there's a void there, fill it.
Absolutely.
You can do it.
Absolutely. We've got some questions up here and then over here, but I want to say one other thing. We've got about 10 more minutes, and then we're going to wrap up around 1 promptly. But I want to say this. I want to allow some time at the end for the panelists to talk a little bit about their own journey and struggle, because there may be some young people out here who are aspiring journalists, and if everything I hear is correct, there are needs in terms of newspapers and perhaps even some of the electronic media for some of you young people to aspire toward careers that these men now have. And so you may want to talk with them either here or afterward about that, about how they got where they are, because who knows, maybe years from now you'll be reporting for Channel 5 or the Tennessee or the Tribune. The hand over here and then over here. Yes, sir.
Could you all discuss a little bit about marketing and demographics? It's important with a diverse group like this. I'm a pop culture guy, and they get to the media gets to everybody a certain different way, and this is why we're losing print media to young people of this particular generation. Speak a little bit about marketing and demographics and how important that is in each of your particular areas of it.
Okay. Demos are extremely important, okay? You hear about the demographics, you hear about the audience. We like to say that we're number one on News Channel 5 this morning, and that's nice, okay? But when our sales team goes to Walmart, when they go to McDonald's, they don't care about if we're number one in the whole pie. When we say we're number one in the morning, that's looking at the whole enchilada. We've got more people watching than Channel 2, than watching Channel 4, than watching Channel 17. When the sales team heads to Walmart, they don't care about the whole pie. They're only trying to reach a small part of that pie. That's where the demographics comes in. So how many women are watching? How many men are watching? How many blacks? For us, how many mamas are watching? You know, that's why we do bus stop weather, because there are mamas out there trying to figure out what I need to put on my baby before I put him out to the bus stop. And so that is extremely important on what's going on. So we're not only selling to the whole pie, we're selling to different segments of that pie. And when our sales team goes out, they rarely mention the whole pie. They say, okay, we know that Walmart is looking for this, so we're going to tell you that we've got women 18 to 34. We've got women 25 to 54. Also, when I talk about this, I look at soap operas, okay? The folks from Nike, the folks from, I guess, any other hip-hop. Let's go with Young Buck, all right? Young Buck is not going to take a CD ad and put it in the middle of the Guiding Light. The people who are watching the Guiding Light have no clue who Young Buck is, all right? However, the people then who do Geritol, who do Metamucil, they're not going to go put an ad in the middle of Pimp My Ride on MTV. Because again, you're looking at certain demographics, and that's what the advertising is all about. And again, they talked about this a moment ago, it's a business. And we are here to be a public source. We're here to provide news and information, but in the end, it's a business. We are here currently until we're sold to make money for Landmark Communications, okay? And at the end of the day, if we're not making money for Landmark, then some budget cuts will be made. Our friends over at Channel 2 are going through this right now. Young Broadcasting told the whole broadcasting group, you've got to shave $30 million off of your budget. That's why they're not doing weekend morning news over there anymore, because budget cuts had to be made somewhere, and Channel 2's share of that was $2 million. They were not reaching the whole audience. They were not reaching certain segments of the audience, so they were penalized for that. So, yeah, we are there to provide news and information, but in the end, it is also a business.
We started our Tennessee Tribune back in 92 as a monthly tabloid-sized news magazine, and in the middle 90s changed to a broadsheet weekly newspaper. And it was about 6 or 7 years ago I was in the office, and our publication is an African-American oriented newspaper. We're presenting news and information about the African-American community to a large extent. I was in the office. I was the only one there in the middle of the day. We distribute on Thursdays. and we have coin boxes throughout the downtown area, and the phone rang. It was a Thursday afternoon. The phone rang, and I answered it, and it was a white gentleman. I could tell it was a white gentleman, and his question to me was, "Where's my newspaper?" Our Tennessee Tribune hadn't been put in the coin boxes downtown in front of T-Pac at that time. And his question was, where's my newspaper? Talking about our Tennessee Tribune. So I knew then that what we were presenting was a product that interested people that moved beyond color. They wanted to read what we were presenting, not about who shot who and what fire there was yesterday, but about positive news and information as it relates to the African American community predominantly, but beyond that. And so from a marketing standpoint of view, my thinking is I want to put out the best product I can, the best positive-oriented news and information product I can. Who shot who and what fire there was is going to be taken care of. Tennesseans going to talk about it, as they should, and that's great. So from a marketing standpoint of view, what I try and do is just produce a good product. That's what people are hungry for. They're hungry for something they can sink their teeth into that isn't negative. And I think we're seeing that from a presidential standpoint of view. They're ready for something positive and forward-thinking, and that's what we try to produce. And just being consistent. Put your product out there every day, every week, or every day, every hour, in some cases. And the public will come. So you put a good product out there, people will consume it. And I just have to price myself to the point where, I can exist. Where those corporations out there can say, well, I can afford to do the Tennessee Tribune, and I can afford to do the Tennessean, and I can afford to buy some airtime on Channel 5. And so being competitive from that standpoint of view is something I have to keep in mind as well. So, but from a marketing standpoint of view, I just try and produce a good product, and the people will come, and then the advertisers will come. And something else that I want you journalism students to be mindful of, and how many of you are there? Who's in communications journalism here? One?
One, two, maybe.
Two? What are the other disciplines? Who else is studying what? English? When I started, I was cutting and pasting and putting, what I cut and pasted through a wax machine and put it on a piece of paper to be shot by the printer to then be printed. Well, we're in the internet age now. Our medium is going to another level. And so you have to be mindful that we are evolving. And so your skills have to evolve. Absolutely. You got to know how to spell. There's a way to write a paragraph, and as you're being a reporter, as you're being a communicator, you have to answer those questions: who, what, when, where, and why. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's about marketing. Yeah, it's about creating a good product. But you, as the next generation, have to pick up where Dwight leaves off in 30 years, where I leave off in 30 years. So it's going to be on you guys. It really is. We're here now. It's going to be your turn before long to pick up this mantle. You saw the videotape that was from 2 generations ago. The generation now sitting in front of you, it's going to be your turn next. So get ready.
We're going to take 2 more questions from the audience, and then we're going to wrap up. It's nearing 1 o'clock here, and then over here. Yes, ma'am.
My question was kind of related. My name is Kristen Aaron, first of all. And I think we all agree that having a voice in journalism is important. But I guess my question is, how did you make it relevant to my age group? The fact that you're saying, you will probably be retiring whatever in 30 years. I understand you have to balance marketing, but then also how do you balance that with the demographic of getting to us and making it relevant to our age group?
You want to start with that?
We put out different products geared toward different age groups, different males, females. And so you have to do some of that. You got to keep up, keep up with the readers. Who's reading the paper? How do you reach young people? Not enough. I have a son who's 30, and he gets most of his news off the internet. And so we have to be aware of that. Now they don't, if you go down to Tennessee, and top editors will say, they call us not a newspaper, we're an information center. So you gotta be aware of that and just keep up with what's out there, who's doing what, and try to get readers whether they're on the internet or whether they're picking up the newspapers.
Yeah.
Wherever you bought that top from, that clothing store does something a little different than its competitors. Walmart is Walmart, but it's not probably where you bought that top from. So, you have to pick a spot, pick your demographic, pick the people you want to talk to, and go after them. And there are publications that will talk to the 25 and younger. We do, but not as much as Spin or some other youth-oriented publication. And so media generally has to, unless it's a morning daily or afternoon daily newspaper that has to cover the gamut, pick a group and talk to them as best you can. We need to do a better job. Our Tennessee Tribune needs to do a better job of talking to the younger demographic, and maybe you can help us do that.
I'll just say something real quick. It's a huge dilemma right now because the traditional older news audience is an older audience. We know that if we tease something at 4 o'clock and say, hey, we'll have more at 5 o'clock, somebody in your generation may not be there at 5 o'clock because you probably have gone online to look at it. So there is a big balance there that we're trying to look at. We've all got websites, so we know that we're trying to reach out to that generation that is on the website too, but you've also got to balance that too with money issues at this point too, because the bread and butter for us is News Channel 5 now. 10, 15 years, it may be online that's the bread and butter, but right now, it's News Channel 5 that's the bread and butter. We've got newschannel5online.com, which is making a little bit of money, but not where we can go out and dedicate a whole staff to it. We've got a separate website now called NashvilleEdge.com, which is really targeted to that 18 to 34 age group of people who want to go out and not just find out about the news, but find out about the entertainment scene. So we are trying to reach out, but again, it's because of money issues that there's a slower growth there. We realize we've got to be there, but because not as much revenue is coming in for .com or Nashville Edge, we don't always have the true resources that we need to get to you at the immediate time. But we all realize that that is a dilemma because as the audience changes, that generation now will be more online down the line.
Okay, final question, and then I'm going to ask the panel for summary comments. Yes?
I'll make this quick because I know you have to wrap up. But my name is Stephen Griffin, by the way. I'm a graduate of Fisk University. And at the time that I entered Fisk, there was no journalism major. There wasn't communications isn't even a major still. It's a minor. And there was only a few classes that I could take. When I graduated, I looked for jobs in the communications industry. I looked for internships. But I found that I had a really difficult time finding an internship where I was willing to work for free with Channel 4, Channel 5, with Tennessean. I emailed Mr. Lewis like a million times. I finally was able to get in touch with Mr. Vincent, but I'm going through. I used every business card. I recently met Mr. Brindle, CBS News. I just happened to meet him and email him like almost every day and just bug him, trying to find out how can I, get in. I'll work for free. I'll get your coffee. I just want to learn the business. So what I'm saying is, why doesn't it seem like there are more opportunities for students or graduates like myself who are willing to work for free? We don't want your money. We just want the opportunity to learn. We want the opportunity to reach out and report the news the way that we feel it should be reported. We're young, we're fresh, we're black people, we're minorities, we're people who can reach out not only to the younger demographic, but we can write however you want us to write. We just want to learn business. And I just thought that was funny that here we are in the middle of this age where, the news is beginning to go more towards, the internet. Everybody's on the internet. This is the perfect generation to give that, the keys to that too. Say, hey, okay, go ahead. We're going to give you this room, and we understand you don't need money for it. We'll let you get our coffee. We'll let you run this. You can reach out, and then it doesn't cost you anything.
Let me just say this, okay? And I used to teach at Fisk some, and I would tell students this: you can't wait until you graduate to try to get an internship. Regardless of what field you're going into, you need to try to do an internship beginning after your freshman year. It's a competitive world out there. It's a very competitive world out there, regardless of what field you're going into. And there are jobs out there. They want good people. Companies want good people. But you got to start early. And, maybe when you're in college, say your freshman year, if you're interested in journalism or what have you, go and offer to do that job free. TV. We pay interns during the summer. But you got to get your foot in the door. You got to learn something about the company. Try to meet somebody so you can. Somebody told me when I first started working at the Tennessee, and this man worked for the Banner named Red O'Donnell. He says, Dwight, he's been dead long since the early 70s, but he said, Dwight, because I've been there almost, in the March, it would be 37 years. But he said, Dwight, remember this, it's better to know somebody than to know something. You got to get your foot in the door. You got to start early. You can't wait until you graduate.
Will the others of you respond to that as well, please? And then we're going to wrap up.
Stevie, I hope Ms. Perry and you have talked.
Yeah.
Good. Don't wait. Don't wait on somebody to tell you what to do. There are stories all around you. And people like Rosetta Miller Perry want somebody to send her an article about something really interesting that will fit in our newspaper. Miss Kim Barton right there is with Mount Zion Church, the biggest African American church here in Nashville. There has to be a Blue Million stories at Mount Zion that you can write about. Miss Francine Gilmer, sitting right behind her, had a position here at Vanderbilt University. I'm sure there are stories she can tell you and point you toward that we would want to run. So go get them. Miss Perry may not have the money to pay you right now, but getting a byline gets you started. Don't wait. Go get those stories, write them, and send them. If not to the Tennessee Tribune, then to somebody else. Somebody's going to print it. And eventually, somebody's going to pay you for it. Just quickly, I was a student, needed a job, got a job at a television station in where I was, running a camera, part-time. That's where I started. At a 200th market television station, running a camera, part-time. Just start somewhere. Get something, somewhere, and the rest will come.
So now, did you do any internships prior to graduating?
I did, but it wasn't in the communications.
Okay.
I didn't have, because there wasn't I'm not making an excuse, but honestly, there wasn't anyone to really guide me at this.
Okay.
What I should do specifically for journalism, and it wasn't until
after the fact.
I worked through college.
Right.
So, with those kind of pressures, I just didn't know.
Yeah, and so for anybody else, you've got to get the internship ahead of time. I was blessed. The first 2 jobs I had came via internships I had from college. And right now, where are we, a couple of months away or weeks away from graduation, there are thousands of people all across the country who are looking for jobs in television as they're getting ready to walk out the door. The problem is there aren't thousands of jobs to be had that are out there. So when you come out of college, you've got to do what you can to set yourself apart. And part of that is knowing before you walk out of that door as a college graduate, what happens. If you're going into print, what goes on in a weekly? What happens in a newsroom? How is it that they decide what stories they're going to cover? My 2 stations were the 3rd station, number 3 station in Knoxville, and then I interned at the number 2 station. I did 2 separate stations because I wanted to know, how does a number 3 station operate? And I also figured at the number 3 station, I might get a chance to do more. Then I went to the number 2 station in the market, and I thought, okay, I want to know what's the difference between a number 3 station and a number 2 station. And I didn't even have to go through a job interview for my first job. They had an opening, and they called me up and offered me a job. It wasn't a job that I wanted, but it's a job that I took because it got my foot in the door. So you've got to get that information and that internship before you walk out the door. The downside of what you're wanting to try to do now is, you may want to be able to go out and do it for free, but from a TV station standpoint, there are insurance issues, okay? We let college interns who are through the college go out on a news story with a news crew. However, a high school student that comes to spend the day with us, and they can only spend the day. We don't do internships for high school students. They can't walk out of the building that day. So it's because of insurance reasons. So there's an insurance issue there. There are workers' comp issues. Yeah, you're doing the story for free for us. So that means up in human resources, you're nowhere on the station's payroll. There's no record of you with the insurance company. But if there is an incident that happens on that news story, then there's a liability there that station has to deal with.
Okay. Yes. Okay.
I'm Francine Lewis, and I work here at the Vanderbilt News Service, which is the media relations office for the university. And what I wanted to say is that a lot of times the media relations office at your university is a good resource. Because I know at ours, for example, there are former journalists from the AP and former national television journalists. And I know, for example, for a while, Mr. Latham, who was up here speaking, his daughter Brianna was at the FIS PR office. So I'm just saying, that's a good place to start too. Even if there's not a clear-cut journalism program or someone that can guide you, that might be a good place to check where at least you can make some connections or find people who have journalism experience that can offer some help.
I'd like to thank the panel again. I'm going to ask them each to give a couple of summary remarks. But again, I think what this shows us is there are so many issues that have to do with getting more blacks in journalism, issues that have to do with representation. We haven't even covered, for example, the coverage of the election. I was talking with Jeff King, who's the assistant director of the center, and we were talking about the brouhaha over Michelle Obama's recent comments. Some of you know her in the way in which she's been attacked by the press. She said something to the effect that she's, for the first time in her adult life, I am really proud of my country. And those comments were attacked in the media. And so again, I can see myself saying that comment. But again, we have media coverage that is really looking at issues of race. And unfortunately, we're not able to really discuss them at this point because time's just wrapped up. So I'm going to ask each one of the panelists again to give a summary, comments, remarks, speak from your heart. Take about 2 minutes each, and then we'll have to adjourn. But again, thank you to the panel. And let's begin. We'll start with Dwight and work his way.
Yeah. I just want to say thank you for inviting me here today. Try not to turn down, try to go out and speak to different people. And if anybody would, please call Sharon Kay. Please listen to WLFSK. I think it's a great radio station. And I don't have any hard feelings against Sharon. But one of the things I'd like for you to do is as the 40th anniversary of the Kerner Commission report is upon us, go read it, see how far we've come as a nation. See truly how far we've come as a nation. And if you care about the media, let's just listen to this and then take a look on March 1st to see how far we've come. This book came out March 1st, 1968. It says the journalistic profession has been shockingly backward in seeking out, hiring, training, and promoting Negroes. Fewer than 5% of the people employed by the news business in editorial jobs in the United States today are Negroes. Fewer than 1% of editors and supervisors are Negroes, and most of them work for Negro-owned organizations. The lines of various news organizations to the militant blacks are, by admission of the newsmen themselves, almost non-existent. The plant is, we can't find qualified Negroes. Where are we today? That was 1968. Where are we today? Where are we in banking? Where are we in housing? Where are we today? And you all help make a difference. And call us when you don't think we're doing a good job. Call us when you think we're doing a good job. Or call our respective organizations and say, you should have covered ... Or we appreciate you covering such and such. We want to be better. We want to do the best job that we can. And all of us are friends. We work together. We may not all agree all the time. But we do work together. We want to see those of us who are people of color move up. And it's not easy. Sometimes, I get criticized for writing about race too much. But it's an issue I think you have to write about. I get criticized for other things. But we have to, you have to hold your ground. If you're not going to do the job that you were hired to do, and we got our jobs, most got our jobs because of those riots. And because they wanted somebody to go into those areas but they want you to be honest. If you're not going to be honest where you are, and at the paper, I have a couple of things that I heard Gwendolyn Brooks, the late Pulitzer-winning poet, say at the Tennessee State Prison for Women. She didn't like the word inner city. And I asked people say, right, the inner city kids, inner city, da-da-da. I tell people, tell me, where is the inner city? Show me the inner city. And then I don't like the word minority, because as Gwendolyn Brooks said, when you use the word minority, you're saying that we're less than. We're not less than somebody else. Call me people of color, call me an African American or whatever, but don't call me a minority. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm sorry to hear that. I'm sorry to see there aren't more journalism students here, but I'm thank all of you for coming. I hope you got something out of it. To reiterate, whatever you're doing, you students especially, whatever your discipline, if you're studying to be a doctor, journalist, whatever you're doing, do it well. Do the best you can, and start somewhere, and work hard, and the rest really will come. I think we're getting beyond where maybe I started. I got an internship at a newspaper in Buffalo when I was a junior in college, and they were looking for an African American photographer. That was 30 years ago. I'm confident that more media are not quite that overt. If you do a good job, if you produce your product well, they'll pay you. They'll find you and they'll pay you. So I'm not just saying make A's. I'm talking about getting good at what you do. Dwight Lewis is good at what he does. Leland Staten is great at what he does.
Wait a minute.
For you, I'm sorry. Dwight Lewis is great at what he does. If you didn't read his column this Sunday, he wanted to be Jackie Robinson when he was 5 and 6 years old. I'm surrounded by greatness, believe me. And I want you to reach that level. And so don't sit back and think that corporate America owes you anything. You got to go get it. If there's an opportunity, if you don't see something on the web, fill it. Make it happen. We did. You can too.
All right. And Steve, you're great too. All right. All right. First up, number one, it's very important that you not only get your foot in the door, but you also work your way up the ladder. They talked about this a little bit earlier. It's great that there are black reporters at the Tennessean. It's great that we've got black reporters at News Channel 5. However, we need more than just that. There's got to be somebody black in that news meeting. I know Dwight's on the board over there, so he helps to kind of guide some of the news stories that are done over at the Tennessean. So you've got to have somebody just not on the bottom floor reporting it or shooting it. That's important, but you've got to have somebody in that news meeting helping to say, okay, look, this is important, and explaining to some of the other people why it is important. There were some issues, I guess, a year or two back with Young Buck. I knew that our producers from rural Middle Tennessee had no clue who that was. But I went into that news meeting and said, look, you've got to cover this story, and this is why you have to cover that story. So you've got to have people in the news meetings doing that. You've also got to have people in management that's doing that. Now, when I joined News Channel 5, the person who was the president and general manager of the station was a black guy. He was the guy who helped get me hired. He was the guy that put me on the morning show. He went on to corporate and then retired. Right now, we don't have anybody black in that top level there, but we've got 2 women who are running our station. But again, you've got to have people in those higher levels helping to make those decisions. For those of you, whether you're going into television, journalism, print, or whatever your interest happens to be, make sure that you get the experience that you need in college. You've got to be able to walk out that door with a great resume, and in my case, in television's case, a great resume tape, because you are competing with a bunch of people from all over the country, and in some cases, international people. So you have got to do the best job that you can to sell yourself. And then just one final comment concerning coverage in our community. I think in ways we can all do better in covering what's going on, but also, too, you've got to let television stations, you've got to let newspapers know what's going on, but at the same time, make sure that you also are doing what you can to get that information out there. Sometimes I will hear, well, we had this happen at my school today, why weren't y'all over here? Well, did you tell anybody that you were having this today? It just doesn't come to us. You've got to let us know. Some days we can get there, some days we can't. But you've got to be able to take the initiative to do it. It's kind of like what I talk about with when I go speak to churches about Black history. Okay? Yeah, it's Black History Month, which is a month for us to educate the rest of the world on why this month is important. Okay? Now, the rest of the world on February this year, March 1, may forget about it and move on to another month. However, from your own standpoint, you have then got to make sure that you are educating your children, educating folks within your family 365 days a year, so that when February comes back around again, then you are much better educated yourselves to tell everybody else on why this month is so important.
Thank you. Also, when you win out, please pick up one of our calendars for a spring semester. Thank you again. Thank you to NABJ and to the gentleman to my right.
Good to see you too, sir.
I'm going to get